In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up one of these Manfrotto 3046 tripods with a 501 fluid head. Now, the first thing you're going to do when you set up the tripod is make sure that the feet are in the right position. This does have both rubber feet and some metal spikes. To expose the metal spike, you just rotate the rubber foot, and then that will expose the metal spike. Be mindful that these spikes can damage some floors. So if you are indoors, most likely you will have the rubber foot extended. And to do that, just rotate the rubber foot until it stops, and then that'll put it in its final position where the metal spikes are hidden and won't damage any floor. Now, to open the tripod, you grasp the legs and just kind of spread them open. So you might need to grab all three of them at different times. So you can spread this out, and then that spreader comes down, and then the tripod is open. Now, in order to extend the legs, there's two places where you can extend the legs. One, turn this collar to the left, and then you can extend the leg like that. Or you can use a quick release and extend the leg like this. Now, used together, this tripod plus the extension of the column can actually get to about 8 feet. But most of the time, you're not going to use all of that length. So just turn the knob, and that will use the quick release, and you can open each one of them. Now, when I set up the tripod, what I like to do is I like to have this lock right here on the right and the crank on the left. That way I can operate the camera using my right hand on the fluid head here, and then I can also raise and lower the column for a pedestal move. Now, once you have the tripod set up, it might not be completely finished because you're going to want to make sure that it's level. To level it, on the top of the tripod and also on the top of the head here, there are two spirit levels. They're little bubbles, and if the bubble is in the middle of this circle there, it indicates that the tripod is level. If it is not level, then that bubble will be to the side. And you can raise and lower the tripod slowly just by releasing the quick release handle here, and then raise or lower each individual leg as necessary until that spirit level bubble is right in the middle. And that's how to level the tripod. You do want to make sure that the tripod's level before you start shooting. Now, after you have that done, you're going to want to mount your camera on top of the tripod. To do that, you need to release this quick release plate. To release it, the first thing you'll do is release this little knob here, and that is going to loosen the quick release plate, but it won't come out completely, and that's a safety feature. To release it the rest of the way, on the left side there's this red button. Press the button, and then you can slide the tripod plate out. I'm going to mount this camera here to the bottom of the tripod. It does require a tool or maybe a quarter to attach it on. On each of our camera bags we have a tool attached to the zipper. Now, in order to attach the tripod plate to the tripod, there are 3 holes on this particular camera: a large threaded hole, a small unthreaded hole, and a small threaded hole. You're going to put the screw that's on the tripod plate in the small threaded hole, and then the pin on the tripod plate in the hole that is unthreaded. You can tighten it at first by hand, and then you can tighten it the rest of the way with the tool. The tripod plate also has an indication which direction the lens is. So there's a little arrow and it says lens. Make sure it's pointing in that direction. That way you can mount it properly on the top of the tripod. To put the camera on the tripod, you're going to slide it on. Slide that tripod plate on, and as it comes in, it will click, but it's not locked in. Now, it won't slide out because of this safety, but it's not locked in, so it will be really shaky. So make sure that after you've slid it on, then make sure it's centered up and tighten down the lock. And that way that tripod is not going to be loose on the camera, and the cameras won't fall off or slide around during a shot. And that's how to mount your camera to the top of the tripod head. Next, in order to control the tripod, you have a number of control knobs and a crank and some other tensioners. The first one that I'll go over is the column here that we can raise and lower. To raise the column, you're going to first need to release this knob here, loosen that, and then you can turn the crank, which can raise or lower the camera. And using this, you can actually get some pretty nice pedestal moves. When you're not using it, then you want to make sure that you lock down that crank in order that the camera doesn't jump a little bit, because there's a little bit of play in it. So if it's loose and you first try to move the camera, it's a little bit loose like that. So if you try to move from that into a pan, it's going to jump a little bit first. So make sure that this is locked down prior to attempting any pans. Now, if I wanted to adjust the pan, there is a lock here at the back, and I can lock it down, and that way it's not going to pan. Or I can loosen this, and now I've got a nice smooth pan. In order to adjust the tension on the pan, not locking, but the tension itself, there is underneath here, I'm going to rotate this a little bit, there's this little knob right here that has a plus and minus, and the plus adds tension, the minus loosens it a little bit. And that's for the pan feature. Now if I want to lock it, I just press this lock all the way in, and then that keeps it in position. Now, in order to adjust the tilt, there is a lock here on the left side. Turning it down will release the lock, and now I can do a tilt, and then when I'm finished, I can lock it down, and then it's not going to move. If I want to adjust the tension on the tilt, then on the right side, there is another tensioner. Plus is going to add tension, minus is going to release the tension. But don't use the tensioners as a lock. You want to just use those to adjust the tension on your tilt or on your pan. And that's how you can get smooth tilts and pans at the speed that you want them. And then when you're finished with it, you can lock it off, and then that's not going to go anywhere. And that's how you can adjust the height through the crank for the pedestal, your pan, and then your tilt. To release the camera, it's the same as you did for the plate itself. You will release the lock on the right side, hold the camera firmly, press the button, and you can remove it. Make sure that when you're finished, that you always remove that tripod plate, because if you put the tripod away without it and someone else uses it, the tripod is useless without this tripod plate. So always make sure that you return it to the tripod so that whoever uses it next has access to it. And that is how to use the tripod, the Manfrotto 3046 with a 501 fluid head.